Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are. We have colleagues from over the pond joining us today, as well as our West Coast and East Coast cancer centers. So my name is Angela Fritchie. I have the honor of serving on the AACI Clinical Research Innovation Steering Committee, and I'm very grateful for AACI, who brings all of our cancer centers together throughout the year through our listservs, through our seminars, and through our meetings. But also excited that they are hosting this roundtable today so we can all learn more about one of the EHR electronic health record to electronic data capture systems that's out there. So with me today, we have the Ignite team that will share about Ignite and their roadmap, along with some of our Cancer Center colleagues who are at various stages of implementing Ignite. And for all of us that are operational leaders wondering how you do this in our cancer centers, because we all know one cancer center is one cancer center, they can share that information with you as well. And then we'll open up for just any questions and answers you have for the team. So with that, I will hand it over to Rich, who is with IgniteData.
Angie, thanks. First challenge is to try and share the deck on the screen, right? So let's go there. Has that worked?
That's perfect.
And I will try and make it big. Does that work, or do you not see it anymore?
Oh, it works, but we need to swap because we see your notes.
Let's do it. How do we do that?
Or if you don't mind us reading your notes, that's okay too.
Yeah, the notes aren't too important. I'll share, in the interest of time, I will share this, and then you'll be able to see it, and we can go from there. Let's do
that, Rich.
Perfect.
I can minimize the size, and I'll make it bigger. So I only have 6 slides to go through here, and I will try and do this as quickly as possible because I think we're probably the least interesting people on this call today. I think we really want to hear from fabulous sites that are on the call. I'm getting a little bit of feedback there, but we want to hear from the fabulous sites that are on the call today. So if I just drill in, what is Archer? What is the EHR to EDC product that Angie mentioned at the start? So it is a cloud-based solution which is agnostic of both the EHRs that it can connect to and the EDCs. So at the moment, it's sat, for example, inside the Epic and Cerner marketplaces, meaning it can be downloaded and put on to these electronic health record systems with relative ease and deployed in roughly 4 to 6 weeks. Although I think there might be people on here today that will be able to show and present that it can be done an awful lot faster. So that's very exciting indeed. It can then also connect to these multiple different EDCs, as you see on the right-hand side of the screen here as well. So the likes of Viva and Metadata, where we have partnerships to be able to push that data through, and multiple different commercial sponsors currently operating on top of the platform. It can work with all sorts of different data, but predominantly lab data, vital sign data is the kind of area that we're mainly working in, with adverse events coming hot on the heels of that as well very, very soon, as well as the future of AI as well. I won't dwell on this anymore. Let's jump to the next slide. So a key point to note is that Archer is fully covered for the sites. So what we mean by that is sites are not paying for Archer to be used. It is a no-cost platform to the hospitals themselves. It's the benefit of the sponsors that have this in place at the site, driving that commercial research forward. And the benefit to both sides is quite large, as we're now seeing from the ROI on different studies that we're running. For the site, it's that reduction in labor and pressure on the site to free up that time. But also for the sponsor, we see a rapid reduction in the queries that are being raised by the EDC. Just going to ask if they could go on mute. We see a rapid reduction of queries inside the EDC, and we also see SDV reducing, and hopefully over time we'll see that whole monitoring piece become more efficient as well. And of course, the labor on both sides all the way through that is significant. So we have a strong commitment to data privacy. A key point here is that we do not retain any data from the sites. So, and I think this is what a pure EHR to EDC tool should do. The idea is that we are piping data from one place to the other. We're a temporary custodian of that data. So in the US, we would have the BAA under the HIPAA Act in place with the site. We are a sub-processor on your behalf to move data for a clinical study. It's not our place to keep that data on our servers and do anything with it. We call that persisting data. So we remove it from our systems as soon as processing is complete. And our sole focus is on EHR to EDC. So we are not a company that's working on CTMS platforms or patient recruitment tools. We're not trying to do anything unusual with the data behind the scenes. We have sole purpose, which is the purpose of eSource data transmission and how to do that as well as possible. And that includes the advent of bringing in things like AI as we move forward with this journey. So 2024 was an absolutely massive transformational year for IgniteData. We expanded across 6 countries, so in the US, Canada, UK, multiple spots in Europe, and Australia as well. We secured Seed 2 funding into the business, which was nearly $10 million of funding to accelerate the growth, expansion, and development of the product as well. We're able to launch version 2 of Archer, which was a significant upgrade and complete redevelopment of the original platform. And it is running well, and it is running on multiple live studies now across the world. We saw significant revenue growth and bookings growth. And I think the key takeaway message here is that this isn't something we're just talking about anymore. It's something that we are doing, and it's something that is happening on real studies around the world with real sponsors actively pursuing it and putting a lot of studies onto the platform. And in 2025, we are going to see a huge number of studies running around the world on top of Archer, which is exciting. So, but the bit that really matters is the data. Does it really have impact on clinical studies? And again, it's easy for me to sit here and say this. Hopefully, you'll hear it from the sites on the call. But where it's been used in active studies, we are seeing significant gains in the data that comes through. So we see a 99.999% data accuracy for the data that's transferred versus manual transcription. We see a 4.6 out of 5 rating when we've done end user assessment satisfaction scores with CRCs to understand whether or not they like the platform using a Likert scale. So again, we hear from sites, they want this, it's a benefit to them, and they want more. We see a dramatic reduction in queries. You can see here the number 87.15, especially with laboratory data. This is huge. And if each one of these has essentially what we could think of as an IT support ticket behind it, which is causing both the site and the sponsor to burn more time to go backwards and forwards, this really is the revolutionary statistic here. And 6.8 times faster data access. What that means, as a use case example, on one study, typically 20 to 30 days post the patient coming in for the visit, we were seeing that data in the EDC within 3 days, which is staggering. When we think about risk-based monitoring and other practices that are coming into the industry now, getting that data faster, more efficient, giving the sites what they need is key. And last slide before I pass the mic on, why is IgniteData the strategic partner? So we're running across multiple live studies around the world in different territories at the moment, and these are regulatory grade studies. This isn't a sandbox, sandpit anymore. These are real regulatory grade studies where the data is flowing into the EDC on real patients for real submissions into regulatory agencies. It's compatible with multiple EHR and EDC systems. As we've seen on the first slide, we're working across Viva, Medidata, Epic, Cerner, etc., and bespoke integrations as well. So Archer is designed to minimize that manual data entry seamlessly for the site, which hopefully has come across in my talk and will come across from others on this call. And installation is seamless with a fabulous team behind the scenes supporting it. Angie, that's all I've got. I'm happy to pass the mic back across.
Thank you so much, Rich. So I'm excited to turn it over to our Cancer Center leaders who are at various stages of implementing Ignite at their centers. And so, as you can imagine, we've all had different experiences. So we want to just share and see what questions you have. But I also want to take a second to recognize all of our corporate roundtable sponsors who have also joined us today. AACI CRI is very grateful to all of our corporate roundtable sponsors, and we look forward to finding new ways in 2025 to bring our sites and our corporate roundtable members together. And this is just the first of many. So kudos to all of our pharmaceutical sponsors that are attending today, and want to thank you again for supporting AACI, everything you do to help support us, making all of our contributions possible. Really very grateful. So as I mentioned, we have a couple of cancer centers that will be sharing their experiences, and we are going to go in order of where we're at in the process. So starting with someone that's very new in the process to one that's fully implemented for a couple of years now. So I would like to introduce you to Lee Andrews from MD Anderson, who will share his experience so far.
Great, thank you, Angie. And I'll start off by saying I know it looks like I'm staring up at the sky here. I'm in a conference room and there was no camera, so I projected and I'm looking at all of you, but I know it looks weird, so bear with me. Um, but good to be with everyone this morning. As Angie mentioned, Lee Andrews, I am one of the executive directors in our technology, data, and innovation group here at MD Anderson. So the perspective I'll provide this morning is very much from the technology side of the house. Also, as Angie mentioned, we are very early in the process. We had our actual kickoff call for our first study yesterday. I will also mention that I have Chen from IgniteData in the room with me. I don't know if anybody, there's Chen. All right. We had actually happened to have an on-site discussion today, so it just worked out that he was able to join me in the room. But I'll provide a little bit of perspective on our journey so far. So backing up, really 4 or 5 years ago, we started working with a couple of different companies on this same type of concept, the same type of EHR to EDC concept. And it was less than successful. I think really the challenge was at the time their ability to scale. We did end up standing up a couple of small POCs. It was a little clunky. Things could have gone better. And at the end of the day, we decided just to kind of back out of all of that. And wait for a better solution. We had actually talked internally about whether we wanted to develop our own solution, but ended up not going down that path. So about, I guess, a year-ish ago, we were introduced to the concept of IgniteData, had some early discussions. We spent, as many of you can probably relate, some time in contracting. We are a state organization, as you may know, so there are unique challenges that come with contracting there. Although I will say, even though we could not use IgniteData's standard contractual form, they were very willing to work with us, very minor changes. And we were able to get that once we had the SOW and things all kind of packaged up, able to get that through pretty quickly. And I want to go back to something Rich mentioned as well, which was the fact that Ignite does not store the data, which for us was a big thing. There's all kinds of additional contractual discussions that happen based on that particular statement about whether or not the data will be shared outside of the institution or outside of the institution-sponsor relationship. So that was another win for us in the contracting side of the house. As I mentioned, we're early. Had our kickoff meeting yesterday, but I will say the process in order to get to that, I heard 4 to 6 weeks to stand things up. Once we finished with contracting, we were done in 10 days. Have been super impressed with the organization, the process, the speed at which we've been able to move. Ignite's been very helpful in kind of guiding us through the steps to take in order to get things functioning appropriately. So very optimistic on expanding this in the future. I won't take up all the time here. We've got other people. There are other comments I can make, but I will hand it off to the next one, and then we can come back around to me if we have time.
Thank you so much, Lee. So next we have Annie from Mayo Clinic.
Right. Thank you. So I just wanted to talk about the experience from Mayo Clinic. So I'm Annie Almazar. I'm a senior program coordinator here at Mayo Clinic, and I'd just like to take a few minutes to share our experience with the initial implementation of Archer technology. Overall, the integration has been an overwhelmingly positive experience. Our study teams are excited to utilize Archer in upcoming studies, and we're looking forward to the ongoing benefits it will bring. As it was mentioned, the initial deployment of Archer takes about 4 to 6 weeks. Here at Mayo, it took just a little bit longer than that. It took about 8 weeks. And during the initial deployment of Archer, there's a pre-project phase, and during that phase, we evaluated the clinical trial data needs and identified specific data points that would need to be mapped in a test environment. IgniteData was great. They helped us to set up the appropriate Archer configuration for the trial. We worked closely with them to ensure that with the study team to ensure there was accurate data mapping. During our kickoff meeting, we discussed and aligned on the project objectives, roles, responsibilities, timelines, as well as technical requirements needed to ensure a successful Archer implementation. From our standpoint, the technical deployment took slightly longer than anticipated, and that was due to internal committee approvals required before we could bring it up to the test environment. However, this was not a major setback. While waiting for the internal approvals, it wasn't a hard stop. So we were able to kind of forward on with our testing. We also found that if we created a test patient by the name of Tracy Archer, we could use her to develop test scripts. And then using this dummy patient in the EHR, IgniteData set the FHIR mappings to retrieve the data from Tracy Archer's EMR based on LOINC mappings. We received internal committee approvals, and once we had that all wrapped up, we were able to complete the testing of the technical deployment. We selected the Archer app in the Epic showroom. We ensured connectivity was successful, and then we worked to identify the training date to work to ensure all data points were accurately transferred from the EMR to the EDC. Upon completion of the non-production testing, we transitioned to this test study into production, and it went seamless. You know, I can't speak loud enough as to how easy it was. We had some internal committee approvals that needed to be done. So we had a clinical practice committee, which oversees the implementation of projects utilizing Mayo Clinic's EHR system to support the practice education and research technology within Mayo. The committee, I can say, was impressed with Archer's capabilities. We even had one member remarking, "Archer, where have you been all of my life?" So the committee formally endorsed the implementation plan, recognizing Archer's potential to enhance the clinical trial data management. Following this, we engaged with our Comprehensive Cancer Center, which also expressed strong support for Archer. They highlighted the capability with various EHR and EDC systems, as well as the robust data security measures to ensure no patient data is compromised. I know we recently had our first sponsor-initiated kickoff meeting, and we're excited to begin our inaugural investigator-initiated study in the coming weeks. We've also identified a second sponsor-initiated study with the same sponsor as our first, and we're actively collaborating with another sponsor to explore potential studies. I believe my fellow panelists will be discussing updates to master agreements with the sponsor. And so with that, I think Matt was going to highlight.
Thanks, Annie. Matt Bush, I'm one of the executive directors from City of Hope within our clinical trials office, and my team has been serving as the main liaisons with the IgniteData team as we start to implement this tool. So just for some quick background, how we ended up with IgniteData. A few years ago, we had done a pilot with a sponsor about a homegrown EHR DDC system, and we found some very promising results from that. We saw some very significant time savings and some really good experiences from our coordinators that were involved. But I think the biggest challenge we had with that was looking at scalability across multiple studies and then moving on to additional sponsors. So we engaged with the Ignite team, I want to say close to a year and a half ago. And for us, I think there was a lot of kind of initial discussions, kind of exploring going through the contracting process, I think was probably the biggest barrier, but that was more of a organizational specific challenge than anything else. But we did just go live with our very first study about 3 weeks ago at our main site in Duarte. And this week we just went live with on that same study at our site down in Irvine. So we are actually up and live and very excited to be testing this with real studies, with real data and real patients. From an implementation standpoint, I would say we were probably in that more of a 6 to 8 week timeline for implementation. That was more, I would say, due to kind of internal, like Annie was speaking to, some internal approvals, making sure we're going through the right change control process and getting the right project sign off from the various teams that we're working with, specifically within Epic, since City of Hope is an Epic client. I would say something that is different for us, I think, compared to what we heard from some of the other speakers, is we are actively now working with 2 to 3 other sponsors to start bringing up additional studies with new sponsors apart from the original we were starting with. And I think something that we've been very encouraged by is the lack of duplicative work we've had to do as we start looking to partner with new sponsors and on the new studies. A lot of that initial mapping work that we did up front really has paid dividends, because the setup as we're looking to bring on a new study is much, much less than that initial workload of getting everything set up and installed. So that's been a very positive experience for us. And we've been really encouraged to start seeing how, from a scalability standpoint, IgniteData and Archer really seems to be checking a lot of the boxes with us so far. As Annie mentioned, from a contracting standpoint with the individual sponsors, we've just been managing at the individual CTA level, but I do know we are looking to see, can we get something more robust in place at potentially the master agreement, so that we're not having to negotiate use of Archer for each study as it comes in. But overall, the initial feedback from the first couple of weeks from our coordinators using the tool has been very positive, and the initial feedback is really pushing us to start seeing if we can get more and more sponsors engaged with using the tool moving forward. So overall, a lot of the similar experiences that Annie and Lee shared just from an implementation and kind of setup standpoint, so I won't repeat all of that, but we're very encouraged, and I think we're really going to continue to push more adoption with this. We are also really excited to start exploring the possibility, I think Joe will speak to this some, about leveraging Archer for some of our IITs as well. Since we're a metadata client for our IITs, that is something we do want to start exploring and seeing, can we start using this internally? Because there's a definite time savings for City of Hope run studies as well. So that's one of the next big things we'll be looking at, hopefully in the next few months.
Thank you so much, Matt. Before we switch to Joe, I just want to highlight that Archer IgniteData has a wonderful onboarding packet, like a whole workbook template that really helps the sites so that your hand is being held by the Ignite team every step of the way through. It's been really helpful. And they also come on site, as Lee highlighted, Chin from IgniteData is currently at MD Anderson. They come on site before we go live to help with change management. They'll meet with anybody, any stakeholders you want, to really make sure that the staff are excited about IgniteData, that this is not going to replace their jobs, because we all know Part 11 compliance requires a human validation. So our teams will still continue to sign off and validate and approve. It's really getting our staff to work at the top of their license. And as soon as the staff hear the amount of auto queries that decrease, everybody gets excited. We're really overcoming the whole auto query sponsor versus data coordinator versus monitor. All of that is really starting to go away. So I just wanted to highlight that as we transition to Joe from MSK, who I believe has been on this journey for about 2 years, and excited to share what he's learned in his journey.
Thanks, Angie. Great to see everyone. Great to see such a large group on the call today. I was able to talk to this AACI group about maybe 9 months ago about what we were doing at MSK in terms of EHR, TDC, and working with Ignite. And so it's great to see the progress we've had not only at MSK in those 9 months, but in the larger industry. And I thought that's what I could kind of spend my time talking about, and actually prepared a few slides to share as well, which I'll pull up to talk about some of the data, some of the results we're seeing at MSK. Pull this up. Let me know if you can't see it. Well, let me introduce myself first. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Joe Langfelder. I lead the clinical research informatics team at MSK. So it's my team's responsibility to manage all the systems we use in our clinical trials program, and that includes our data management processes, our EDC systems for both internally investigator-initiated studies and also our sponsor studies. And so, as Angie mentioned, we have been working with Ignite for a couple of years now, and it's been a great experience so far. And I think you'll see why we're happy when I start to show some of the data. We also, and I'll pull up a slide that kind of talks a little bit about our journey. Like the previous speakers, we have looked at other solutions in the past, this direct data exchange or e-source, or whatever you want to call it. Idea has been something that MSK has really been prioritizing for several years, and we've shown the ability to do this on a small scale for a couple of studies here and there, and really have shown the value of this, but never, and I think it was maybe Matt that mentioned, haven't seen that scalability. Our strategy is really to implement a tool across our entire portfolio of studies. We want our entire research coordinator workforce working in the same way, whether they're working on an MSK investigator-initiated study or on a sponsored study. And so when we were looking at vendors and looking at some of the reasons why previous vendors didn't pan out, what we really wanted was an agnostic solution that could connect to different data sources at the site level, where I can go into details if anyone's interested, but we're not actually connecting directly to our EHR, we're connecting to a research data warehouse. So flexibility on the site side was important, but also flexibility on the sponsor side. So we wanted a solution that would connect to multiple EDC systems so that we could be using one solution across all of our portfolio. So Ignite did check those boxes for us. We also wanted to partner with a technology provider that had sponsor relationships. So we really wanted to, we're going to spend the time to implement a solution. We wanted to make sure that there were going to be studies on the other end, sponsors that were ready to go, and Ignite has done a tremendous job in building those sponsor relationships. And we also wanted a collaborative partner. We understand that this technology is still evolving, that this is going to continue to grow, and there's going to be new data sources and ways we have to work together to push this forward. And so we really wanted a partner that was going to be collaborative and work closely with us on this journey. And I think you've heard that from other speakers as well today, that Ignite is really good at partnering closely with us as we roll out new studies. So to share some data, we are really seeing we're kind of reaching that point of scalability now. This is a few charts that show the amount of data that we've pushed through Archer IgniteData on a quarterly basis. This is organized. The top left is for all studies. The chart on the right is for our IIT studies, and then the bottom is our sponsored studies. And you can see across the board last quarter, we just knocked it out of the park. Just a huge expansion on both the sponsor side and the investigator-initiated side as well. The data from Q1, maybe I should remove that from this slide just because it looks like it's going down, but of course that was just a few days into 2025, 3 days into 2025, and already well on our way to probably doubling the bar from last quarter. So really nice growth, and that makes us happy. We're also, and this is a sneak peek of a presentation that we'll be giving later this spring. Will there also be a publication where we are looking at a randomized set of studies and really working to prove out the efficiency gains, the quality gains, the user satisfaction numbers that we're all seeing, but really kind of try to do it in a very methodical, scientific manner. And so this is some of the results of that study, and I can share the larger publication with this group when it's ready. This is looking at the increase in data entry speed across those 5 randomized studies, and across the board, really significant gains, differences based on the years of experience with the coordinator, the complexity of the study, et cetera, but all very, very positive. And so just wanted to end the prepared slides on saying that, for us at MSK, and I think for others on this call, it's really about scalability. We've shown that this is possible, that there isn't the need to do pilot after pilot to prove out that this is possible, that we're really at a time to scale this technology. And so there are several industry groups that we partner with at MSK, and I know others on the call do as well, that are helping to push this vision forward. One of those groups is Vulcan HL7 Fire. So one of the technical capabilities that Ignite leverages is the fire endpoints that are coming out of EHR systems in the US and starting in other countries as well. So Vulcan is really active in pushing that forward. And another group I get to work very closely with is IHG, more focused on the European side, but they're now starting to collaborate with sites and sponsors in the US as well. The work we're doing here, and I call this out because others on the call might be interested in looking at some of the deliverables from this group that are creating really playbooks and KPIs and other documentation that can be used to roll out EHR to EDC at your site. So if you search for IHG, you'll come up with this site that can give you some good resources to help you roll out at your site as well. And I will stop sharing there and pass it back to Angie.
Thank you so much, everyone. So we do have some questions in the chat that we can address first, and then we'll open it up to Q&A, or if you would prefer to put questions in the chat, our speakers can address. If you're shy, you can message me privately, Angela Fritchie, and I'm happy to read your questions as well. So our first question is, are you saying Archer can be used eventually for all studies in the portfolio, or is it too early to tell?
Whose perspective would you like first?
Rich, let's go with you, and then maybe Joe.
Cool. So that's the core aim of why we started the company, why we wanted to build the software, the approach of creating something that was cloud, and we had the right kind of political, environmental infrastructures to be able to do that post the 21st Century Cures Act is really all about market timing. And I think that market timing presented itself to be able to build something that could actually finally solve that problem at scale. And now we're in that position where we're getting that site network in place, and we've got those large sponsors. coming up behind it, many of which have now signed enterprise agreements with us. So, it's not something I can talk about publicly in a lot of detail, but we know we've got this tail of a large volume of licenses and commitments to drive these studies from a commercial perspective. So we see it as how do we work together to now address this with the rest of the pharma industry? How do we get those people that aren't as adventurous as, say, the AstraZenecas who are in the public domain for using this to come on board and move quickly? And I think Joe hit the nail on the head when he was talking about, how it's BAU now. It's time to go. This is generally available. We need to get that mindset shift in the industry because for a long time, I can remember when we started the company, people were telling us we were wrong every single time. You approached a CRO, you approached a sponsor, you approached an investor, and they said, no, no, you can't solve this. People have been trying to solve this for years. And we must have a certain amount of stupid because we kept going and we kept doing it. And then eventually you prove it can be done. I can remember one of the founders of Metadata telling us that you're wrong and this can't be done. And, now we're doing it and we're putting data into metadata. And you saw Joe's statistics there. A lot of that data is flying into Rave on a daily basis. So I think we've broken that idea that it can't be done. And we've moved to the point where there are live regulatory grade studies running on the platform, and we're seeing the numbers of patients scale up every single month. So it's the start of a journey now. How do we work together as quickly as possible to get the industry to move? I think is the short answer to the question rather than can we?
Yeah, agree with everything Rich says. I'll add on the strategy behind how we'll apply this to our portfolio. Yeah, we are using it for both IAT studies and sponsored studies, and that is the strategy from MSK is we want to put this on all of our studies, as I mentioned. Really want our coordinators working in one way across the studies. I was talking to my team earlier today, and our goal is to starting March 1st to every new IIT study at MSK will use IgniteData, and then of course as many sponsors that come as well.
Thank you, Joe. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna add, Angie, I think the same story here. Obviously, we're very early in the process, but we are very much looking forward to moving this into support our IITs as well. We're an Advara shop here from a EDC perspective, so I'm looking forward to, I think, some of the conversations that IgniteData is having with them on how to improve those integrations. So same story here.
Thank you, Lee. And for Mayo, we also use metadata for our IITs. And we are going live actually with using one data coordinator who is going to support all of our Mayo sites. So we picked a trial that's going to be open in Arizona, Florida, Rochester, and our health system sites with just one person supporting that trial because we have one integrated EHR. So we really want to test and show how we can also support our community